hollow of his hand, Grief Without Standard Units of Measurement by Zahie el Kouri. It was when I sliced the first lemon that I started to panic. How much lemon juice, I thought to myself, and what would I use to measure it? It was the same for all the ingredients in the hummus. How much tahini? How much garlic? When we made the dish together, my father always gave me the answer by showing, not telling. One time using large spoons, one time in espresso cups, one time with the salt in the hollow of his hand. It depends, he would say. You just have to taste it. But it was a week after my father's funeral, and my father's lifeless hand was lying in the ground in the cemetery 5 miles away. Now my mother and I were alone in the kitchen, trying to recreate my father's hummus. I looked up from the lemon and noticed my father's slim wallet at the other end of the island. I knew it was just as he left it, down to the $227 he carried into the hospital the last time. When we came home after his death, my mother counted the money in front of me, as if the number itself were important, and then tucked the bills back inside. Next to the wallet were my father's medications for pain and nausea, all lined up in their red plastic tubes from the Target pharmacy, and next to them the yellow legal pad my mother used to keep track of them. My 74-year-old father died just 10 weeks after his diagnosis with pancreatic cancer, and my mother had done everything for him for every minute of those 10 weeks. 6 days after the diagnosis, I flew in from my married life in California to my parents' house in Florida, where I stayed for almost all of the next few months. My mother was standing behind me, opening a can of chickpeas over the sink. The June sun streamed through a window and bounced off her hair. I moved to my left to pick up a head of garlic. From that spot, I could see the kitchen table, where the three of us spent countless hours sharing our lives and the recipes for the meals before us. "How many cloves do you want?" I asked. 2 or 3 per can, she said. "I am making 2 cans. She paused. My mother was looking at the jar of tahini. "Is it 2 spoons or 3 spoons?" she asked. I sighed and put my head down on the counter. "It's either 2 spoons or 3 spoons, or 3 spoons or 4 spoons," I said. "Large spoons," I added. She walked to the drawer where they kept the large spoons. My parents always cooked together. Just as they made their own family culture, a mosaic of my father's Syrian Lebanese traditions and my mother's Northern Italian, they made their own kitchen culture as well, full of garlic and lemon and generous helpings, and totally eschewing instruments of standard measurement. The hummus was the only dish my father prepared alone. I squeezed the first lemon against the stainless juicer and poured it into a white espresso cup decorated in pink flowers. I did not know if it was enough. My throat was tight, like there was a tiny person inside my belly reaching up and squeezing my vocal cords. "And the lemon?" I asked. "Do you remember about the lemon? Do you remember how many espresso cups?" "I think it is the same," she said. We measured the tahini in large spoons and the lemon in espresso cups and the salt in the hollow of my palm, and we poured all of these things into the blender with the chickpeas and the garlic. We pressed blend and held our breath. The blender whirred and the chickpeas gave up their distinct identities to merge with our hopeful offerings. "You have to taste it," my mother said. "I do not have the taste for hummus like you and your father." I stuck my finger in the blender and lifted a fingerful to my mouth. It was not my father's hummus. "Is it good?" my mother asked. "No, it is not good," I said sharply. "Something is wrong." My mother stuck her own finger in the blender and licked her lips thoughtfully. "I like to let him be in charge of the hummus," she said. "I wanted him to know that we needed him." "If we had written it down, we would have it now," I said. "Instead, we don't have him and we don't have the hummus." My mother started to cry, her green eyes red and glassy. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought we had more time." I did not comfort her. Instead, I had a good angry cry there, not my first since the funeral, but certainly the angriest, resting my head on the cool gray counter. I would console my mother later, but now all I could do was pull myself together and try to capture the recipe none of us had ever written down. I faced the blender and tried to find the missing large spoon or espresso cup of ingredient, without a recipe, through trial and error and taste, the way my father lived his life, leaving no real recipe behind, only the memory of the hollow of his hand. Thank you.